Hey, this is Josiah. I just wanted to share a quick thought about something that I have been hearing on a consistent basis is the belief of revival. And um, and I'm not against revival, and I understand the concept behind revivalism. Um, it's the belief that God creates a national awakening, and there is a move of the Spirit, and thousands of people come to supposed salvation. Um, of course, I think the American culture has somehow lost the definition of salvation. So I just wanted to share my thoughts on revivalism. Um, First of all, revivalism is not even mentioned in Scripture. Some people would revert back to the episodes in Acts in chapter 2 where 3,000 come to salvation, and then again later on in the book of Acts where 5,000 come to salvation because there is a massive move of God to save many. But this is a very, very rare occasion in Scripture. That happens one time in the Old Testament with Nineveh, but even in the Old Testament, there usually isn't a massive move like that. Um, there happened a couple times in the nation of Israel where a righteous king would come and he would destroy altars and reestablish biblical and scriptural worship. Um, but what is meant by revival? And I think revival is usually traced back to early American culture in the first and second Great Awakenings, where there was a push of religious movements that were tied to political and economical movements as well. The first Great Awakening happening sometime right before the Revolution, and the second one happening after the establishment of the United States. So, well, I guess what my question is, and this is what I ask myself, and of course, this is just my opinion, is what does it mean to have a revival? What does it mean that we're waiting for a move of God? I think the reason that churches are perishing and that churches are dying is because they keep waiting for revival. They keep waiting for this huge movement, like it happened in the 60s and the 70s, and how it happened in the early 1900s, and how it happened in the late 1800s, and so they're waiting for this movement from God when God doesn't necessarily have to move that way. I've heard my whole life, every single year, it seems every single year I would hear, we're on the verge or we're on the brink of something massive. We're on the brink of some huge movement. And I've heard this every single year at every single Christian event, at every single harvest event, at every single, um, large gathering of peoples, or like we're waiting for this massive move of God, whatever that means. But I want to just encourage us to rethink this in a biblical sense. Jesus, in speaking to the 5,000 men that he fed, some biblical scholars have said that there was perhaps even as close up to 15,000 people that Jesus fed with 5 fish and 2 loaves of bread. How many people believed? And the answer is the 12 minus Judas, because Judas was a devil. And they weren't looking for Jesus. They were looking for his food, for his miracles. They were looking for ways to which they could satisfy their flesh. They weren't looking for Jesus. So every single time that there is this huge gathering of people, wherever they wanted to do this revival thing, Um, for some reason, they always associate a mass move of God with revivalism. And I think it's time for us to rethink this. If we keep waiting for a move of God to happen in the nation so that we can just go out and glean from the numbers, then we're totally missing the point of evangelism. Evangelism is not done on massive scales all the time. Listen, guys, I'm not against it, okay? I'm not against it. I'm just thinking out loud here. I'm not against revivals, and I'm not against, large crowds coming together. But if we could take a survey of how many people that go to the Harvest Crusade went the year before, I think it'd be more than 90% of the same people that went last year. And if we were to take the same people and say how many of you went down to quote unquote accept the Lord, it would be the same number of people that did it the year before. Jesus does not wait for huge gatherings to save. That's not how Jesus works. We're not on the brink of Jesus moving. We are right now in the middle, every single day, in the midst of his moving and saving people. There's people being saved every day. So I think we need to stop waiting for revivals. Stop waiting for these movements to happen and just keep working for the kingdom. Don't think about the short-term explosive events, but rather think about the slow, gradual, long-term events. Instead of waiting for this huge revival, we should be going door to door and talking about Jesus person to person. And if our church stays at a 50, 100 level congregant, that is a move of God. We need to stop waiting for these revivals and these movements to take place, because it can be years and years and years before God can choose to do something again. And I don't know why American Christians are waiting for God to do something in this country. If anything, the only type of revival that we ought to be waiting for is the revival of the purity of the church through the persecution of the church by the wicked establishment of government. Do I think God can save our government? Absolutely. Absolutely. I absolutely do. But God, throughout history, has always brought about revival through intense persecution of the church. So if we want revival, I think we always need to keep in mind what revival has always meant to the church. If we want to see massive movements of God, we must be ready for massive persecution. Anyways, those are my thoughts on it. And of course, as always, comment below my YouTube channel, subscribe. If you want me to talk a little bit more about this, I'd be glad to. I'll answer any questions you might have. God bless you.